In the dusty county courthouse in Bridger Valley, a broke migrant carpenter was about to place a throwaway bid that would expose secrets powerful corporations had spent generations trying to erase. What started as salvaging timber for truck repairs took a shocking turn when he came face to face with a hidden vault containing Depression-era seeds, coded quilts, and a legally binding pact that could flip control of an entire region's food supply. Eli Sarmiento wasn't your typical drifter. For 3 months, he had spent his life following harvest crews northward, known for his honest demolition work and his belief that broken things could reveal their truth. He never expected a collapsed barn bought for 75 cents would reveal the most dangerous truth of all when he encountered Gretel, a skeletal blue heeler scratching frantically at a warped floorboard. He had no idea he was uncovering a network of seed caches hidden by farmers, fighting a predatory grain cartel in 1932. Eli's decision to lift that trapdoor and honor the mutual seed rights agreement instead of selling out would ignite a legal war with Tate AgriHold, launch a movement for agricultural sovereignty, and force him to choose between the safety of solitude and the terrifying responsibility of stewardship. What began as a joke bid at a tax auction would become a battle for the right to decide collectively, rather than submit to corporate control. The scattered heirs of Bridger Valley would never be the same after Eli proved that some treasures aren't meant to be owned. They're meant to be shared, planted, and allowed to grow wild and free once more. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The auctioneer's voice bounced off the courthouse steps like a tired ball. Lot 47. Condemned structure. Former agricultural barn. Purchaser assumes demolition liability. Do I hear 75 cents? Eli said. The auctioneer stopped, looked over his reading glasses. Son, this isn't a yard sale. 75 cents is what I've got. Eli kept his hands in his pockets. The morning sun pressed against his neck. He'd been following harvest crews north for 3 months, and the barn lot sat exactly where his truck had died 2 days prior. Coincidence felt like instruction lately. The auctioneer sighed. 75 cents going once. Silence from the courthouse steps. The handful of contractors had come for the farm equipment lots. Nobody wanted collapsed timber and liability. Twice, a woman in the back row shifted. Alma Webb. Eli had seen her watching from her porch when he'd walked the property yesterday. Her expression hadn't changed then either. Stone carved to witness. Sold. The gavel cracked. Congratulations on your splinters, Mr. Sarmiento. Eli signed the quitclaim deed with a borrowed pen. The clerk's hand trembled slightly as she notarized it. She was young, probably wondering why anyone would buy a death trap. He was wondering the same thing. The barn sat 3 miles out, slumped against the landscape like something that had given up. Timbers buckled inward. The roof had surrendered to gravity in sections, leaving gaps where light fell through in dusty shafts. Everything smelled of rot and old hay and time. Eli circled the perimeter. The foundation stones had shifted, creating gaps big enough to crawl through. He could salvage maybe 1/3 of the lumber if he was careful. Sell it to the reclaim yard in Bridger. Pay for the truck repair and move on. That's what he told himself. A dog appeared at the tree line. Blue heeler, female, ribs showing through patchy fur. She watched him with one ear cocked, ready to bolt. Hey, girl. Eli crouched, held out his hand. You lost? She didn't approach. Didn't run either. Just studied him with amber eyes that had seen too many strangers. Eli opened his truck bed, found half a sandwich he'd saved from the gas station, tossed it gently between them. The dog crept forward, snatched the bread, retreated. Fair enough. Eli stood, grabbed his crowbar and gloves. I'll be here a while if you change your mind. The dog watched him squeeze through a foundation gap into the barn's dark interior. Inside, the air was cooler, damp. The collapsed roof had protected some of the floor, but most boards groaned under his weight. Eli tested each step, crowbar tapping ahead like a cane. Columns of light fell through the breaks above, illuminating dust motes that swirled in patterns almost deliberate. He started in the northeast corner where the structure looked most stable. "Prying boards? Stacking anything straight?" The blue healer appeared in the foundation gap, watching. "Gonna supervise?" Eli asked. She lay down, rested her chin on her paws. "Good call." He worked through the morning. The sun climbed and the light changed, moving across the barn's interior like a slow tide. Eli had always liked demolition work. The honesty of it, breaking things down to their essential pieces. No pretense. The dog entered fully around noon, sniffed the perimeter, scratched at the southwest corner. "Nothing over there but rot," Eli said. She scratched harder, whined. Eli set down his crowbar, crossed to where she pawed at a warped section of sill plate. The wood looked darker here, newer. Someone had patched this recently. Within the last decade, maybe. He knelt. The dog backed up, tail low but wagging slightly. "You find something?" Eli worked his fingers under the sill plate. It lifted easier than it should have. Beneath, instead of dirt or stone, there was wood. A trapdoor, warped from moisture but intact, with a handle. His pulse kicked up for no reason he could name. The trapdoor resisted, then surrendered with a crack that echoed. Cold air rushed up, carrying the scent of old paper and leather and something else. Something preserved. Eli pulled his phone from his pocket, used the flashlight. The beam fell into a small space, maybe 4 feet deep, lined with stones, waterproofed with what looked like tar paper. Inside, a metal box, wax cylinders in a wooden rack, leather-bound ledgers, and folded carefully on top, a quilt, hand-stitched, faded but intact. "What the hell?" Eli whispered. The dog whined again. "Softer now." Almost apologetic, Eli lowered himself into the space. His boots touched stone. The air was different down here, still, waiting. He lifted the metal box first, heavy, latched but not locked. The wax cylinders next, careful not to crack their ancient surfaces. The ledgers, the quilt last, unfolding slightly in his hands to reveal patterns that weren't decorative. They were deliberate, geometric, purposeful. He climbed out slowly, set everything on a stable section of floor. The dog approached, sniffed each item, then sat. Eli opened the metal box. Inside, documents wrapped in oilcloth. He peeled back the layers with fingers that had gone clumsy. The first page was notarized. Dated April 1932. Signed by dozens of people in careful script. Mutual seed rights and profit-sharing agreement, we, the undersigned families of Bridger Valley, do hereby establish a cooperative pact for the preservation and shared stewardship of heirloom seed stock, agricultural knowledge, and communal profit derived from said resources. No single party shall hold exclusive rights. All decisions require majority consent. All benefits shall be distributed equitably among contributing members and their heirs. The signatures ran down the page and onto the next. Fletcher Whitley, Yunsan Park, Mary Delaney, Jose Mendoza. Names that meant nothing to Eli but had meant everything to someone. He set the pack down, picked up the quilt, held it to the light falling through the collapsed roof. The patterns resolved into something almost like a map. Stitched coordinates, roots marked in color variation so subtle he'd almost missed them. The dog pressed against his leg, warm, solid. "We need to find someone who knows what this means," Eli said. The dog looked at him with those amber eyes. "Yeah," Eli said. "I know that look too." He carefully repacked everything into the metal box, climbed back through the foundation gap into afternoon light that felt different now, sharper, more particular. Alma Webb still sat on her porch. Still watching, Eli started walking. Alma Webb's porch was a museum without walls, photographs in frames, newspaper clippings under glass, a hand-carved sign that read, "Memory Keeps." She sat in a wicker chair that had shaped itself to her body over decades, hands folded on a cane worn smooth. Eli climbed the steps with the metal box under one arm. The blue healer followed 3 paces behind. "You bought it then," Alma said. "Not a question. I did. Found something. I did." She studied him with eyes that had forgotten how to blink away discomfort. "Show me." Eli set the box on the porch railing, opened it. Pulled out the quilt first because it was the thing he understood least. Alma's expression didn't change, but her hands moved, reached, stopped, just before touching the fabric. "May I?" "Please." She lifted the quilt like it was alive, spread it across her lap. Her fingers traced the stitching patterns without looking down. "Reading Braille, reading memory. Dear God," she whispered. "They actually did it." "Did what?" "Hid everything. The whole network." Her finger followed a line of blue thread. "This is a meeting route. Spring plantings. See how it curves? That's the old Miller Road before they paved it." Eli crouched beside her chair. "What am I looking at?" "Coordinates. Instructions. Coded so only co-op members could read them." Her voice had gone soft, reverent. "My father helped make these. During the Dust Bowl, when the grain syndicate was buying up everything and the banks were foreclosing, and the only way to survive was to share what you had." She looked up at him. "Where did you find this?" "Trapdoor. In the barn floor, the Whitley place." She nodded slowly. "That makes sense. Fletcher Whitley was one of the founders. His son helped maintain the cash network." Eli pulled out the notarized pact. "What's a cash network?" Alma read the document. Her hands trembled. She set it down carefully and closed her eyes. "They didn't just pool their seeds," she said. "They hid them. In multiple locations. So if one site got raided or burned, the others would survive. The quilts told them where to look. Raided by who? The grain cartel. Tate Consolidated Grain. They wanted to control everything. What you planted, what you harvested, what you could sell, and to who." She opened her eyes. "Most farmers couldn't fight. So these families fought smarter. Shared everything, kept the co-op secret. Preserved seed lines that the cartel couldn't patent or control." Eli looked at the quilt again. The patterns made more sense now. Routes, locations, a map built from cloth and thread and necessity. What happened to them? Some held on. Most didn't. The cartel became Tate AgriHold. Bought out the holdouts. Foreclosed on the stubborn ones. By the 50s, the co-op was gone. Forgotten. She touched the pact. Or so I thought. The dog had climbed onto the porch. Lay down in a patch of sun. "What's her name?" Alma asked. "Don't know yet. She found me yesterday." "Found the barn, you mean?" "Dogs remember places better than people." Alma folded the quilt carefully. "She's a healer. Work breed. Probably descended from farm dogs that worked these fields." Eli hadn't considered that. Lineage in animals. Memory passed through instinct instead of words. "You need to talk to someone about the seeds," Alma said. "Someone who can verify what's in those ledgers. Test whether the strains are really what the pact claims. You know someone." "Dr. River Okafor. Runs a seed library north of here. Left a big university because they wanted to own everything she developed." Alma pulled a pen from her pocket. "Wrote on the back of an envelope. Tell River I sent you. Tell her it's about the Bridger Valley Co-op. She'll understand why it matters." Eli took the envelope. The address was an hour north. He could make it before evening if he left now. "One more thing," Alma said. Her voice had changed. Harder. "If this is real, if those seeds are viable and the pact holds legal weight, Tate's people will come. They won't ignore a threat to their patent portfolio. They'll offer you money first, then lawyers. Then they'll find other ways to make you cooperate. I don't scare easy. You should." She met his eyes. "My father sewed those patterns at night with the curtains drawn. The co-op members use code words. Met in different locations. Never wrote anything down that could be traced. They did all that because people who challenged the cartel had a way of losing their farms. Or worse, the sun had moved. The porch was half in shadow now. Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're the custodian now, whether you meant to be or not. That pact makes you responsible for what happens next." She handed him the quilt. "And because my father spent his whole life protecting something he believed mattered. I won't let it die because someone got scared." Eli refolded the quilt, placed it carefully back in the metal box with the ledgers and cylinders and packed. The dog stood when he did, ready to follow. "What was your father's name?" Eli asked. "Samuel Webb. His signature is on that pact. Third from the bottom." Eli looked. Found it. Careful script, slightly smudged. "Thank you," he said. Alma nodded. Settled back in her wicker chair. "Don't thank me yet. You haven't met River. River Okafor's seed library occupied a converted feed store on the edge of a town too small to have a name. The sign out front read Common Roots Seed Archive in hand-painted letters. Through the window, Eli could see shelves floor to ceiling. Mason jars, labeled envelopes. Filing cabinets with drawers half open, the blue heeler waited in the truck bed curled on an old blanket. "Stay put, girl," Eli said. "I'll crack the windows." She huffed but didn't argue. The door chimed when he entered. The air inside smelled like dust and paper and something green. "Growing things, even in winter. We're closed," a voice called from the back. "Alma Webb sent me." Silence, then footsteps. A woman emerged from between the shelves, tall. Natural hair pulled back, lab coat over jeans. She studied Eli with the kind of attention scientists give specimens. "Alma doesn't send people unless it's important," River said. "What do you have?" Eli set the metal box on the counter, opened it. "Seeds, ledgers, a pact from 1932. Alma said you could tell me if they're real." River pulled on latex gloves, lifted the first ledger gently, opened it. Her eyes moved across the pages with surgical precision, handwriting's period appropriate. "Paper stock looks right." She held a page to the light. "No UV brighteners." "That's good. Modern forgeries usually fail there." She set the ledger down, pulled out one of the sealed jars. "Corn kernels, dark red, smaller than commercial varieties. You haven't opened these?" "No." "Good." River carried the jar to a workbench, pulled down a magnifying lamp, examined the seal. Wax. Probably beeswax. Original cap. "No sign of tampering?" She looked at Eli. "Do you understand what you might have here?" "Alma said it could invalidate patents. If these are what the ledger claims, genuinely preserved heirloom. Varieties from before corporate breeding. Programs they establish prior art. Proof that these genetic lines existed before anyone tried to patent them." River set down the jar carefully. "That's not just academically interesting. That's legally explosive." Eli felt the weight of her words settle. "How do we prove it?" "Non-destructive testing first. Imaging, paper dating, ink chromatography. If those check out, we do careful germination tests. See if the seeds are viable." She pulled out her phone. Typed notes. "I'll need to document everything. Chain of custody. Third-party verification. This can't look like wishful thinking or fraud. How long? For preliminary work? A week for full analysis? Months?" River met his eyes. "But even preliminary results will be enough to draw attention. The kind you might not want," Alma warned me. "Good." River pulled off her gloves. "There's someone else we need to involve. Sister Bernadette Kelly. She runs the diocesan archive 2 towns over. Used to work in museum preservation. She's meticulous about provenance and she can't be bought or intimidated. A nun. A nun who exposed forged donation records 3 years ago. Got a bishop quietly removed." River smiled slightly. "If we're building a case that needs to stand up in court, we need someone whose integrity is unassailable." Eli looked at the metal box. The quilt, the ledgers, the seeds waiting in their jars like messages from people who'd believed cooperation was stronger than conquest. "Do it," he said. "Test everything. Get the nun. Whatever it takes to prove this is real." River nodded, pulled out a camera. "Then we start with photographs. Every page, every jar, every inch of that quilt. By the time we're done, we'll have a record that even Tate AgriHold can't erase." She paused. "You understand what you're starting?" "A fight, a war," River corrected, "over something people forgot was worth fighting for." Eli thought about the blue heeler outside. About Alma on her porch. About signatures on a pact written when the world was dust and hunger and people still believed in sharing. "Then let's make sure we fight it right," he said. River smiled, started taking photographs. Outside, the light was fading. The dogs slept. And in mason jars on shelves floor to ceiling, thousands of other seeds waited. Proof that some things survive everything. If someone cares enough to keep them safe. The phone call came at 6 in the morning. Eli answered on the 3rd ring, still half asleep in the truck bed where he'd been camping near the barn. The blue heeler, he'd started calling her Gretel, lifted her head. "Mr. Sarmiento, this is Beverly Ortiz from the county clerk's office." I'm calling to inform you that a deed flag was triggered on your recent purchase. Eli sat up. A what? Standard protocol. When certain properties transfer ownership, we notify relevant parties. In your case, the demolition contractor and the county safety board. Her voice was careful, professional. You should expect contact within 24 hours. Contact about what? Compliance inspection. The structure was condemned for a reason, Mr. Sarmiento. The county needs to ensure you're not creating a public hazard. She hung up before he could ask more questions. Gretel growled low in her chest. Eli followed her gaze to the road. A black SUV was turning onto the property. Behind it, a white van with Tate AgriHold Community Partnership printed on the side. Hell, Eli muttered. He climbed out of the truck as both vehicles parked. The SUV door opened first. A woman emerged, mid-40s, expensive casual clothes. Smile that didn't reach her eyes. Mr. Sarmiento. She extended her hand. Sorry, Delaney. I work with Tate AgriHold's Community Development Program. I heard about your recent acquisition and wanted to introduce myself. Eli didn't take her hand. How'd you hear? Small county. Word travels. She lowered her hand without offense. We're always interested in property revitalization projects, especially ones with historical significance. Gretel positioned herself between Eli and Sori, hackles raised slightly. Your dog doesn't like strangers. Sori observed. She's a good judge of character. Sori's smile didn't flicker. We'd like to help. Tate has a program that partners with local landowners to restore agricultural heritage sites. We provide funding, expertise, and I'm not interested. You haven't heard the terms yet. Don't need to. The van doors opened. Two men in hard hats and clipboards emerged. One carried equipment that looked official. This is our site assessment team, Sori said. Standard procedure before we discuss any partnership. They'll document the structure's condition, test for environmental hazards, ensure everything's safe. I didn't authorize an assessment. You don't need to. County code allows preliminary inspections on condemned structures, especially ones that might pose biosecurity risks. Biosecurity? Eli's stomach dropped. It's a barn that's been sealed and abandoned for decades. We've seen cases where old agricultural sites harbor contaminated materials, pesticide residue, fungal spores. Even improperly stored seed stock can pose risks if it's degraded. The men were already walking toward the barn. Gretel barked once, sharp. Call them off, Eli said. Mr. Sarmiento, we're trying to help. If there's anything hazardous on this property, you're liable. Let us document it. Let us make it safe. Then we can talk about how Tate can support your restoration goals. A sheriff's cruiser pulled up. Deputy Raul Mendoza stepped out. Tall, military bearing. Expression neutral. Morning, Eli, Raul said. Ms. Delaney, Deputy, Sori's tone warmed. Perfect timing. We were just explaining the inspection process. Raul looked at Eli. You consent to an inspection? No. There's your answer, Raul said to Sori. Her smile tightened. Deputy, with respect, county code requires a warrant or owner consent for entry onto private property. Unless you've got a warrant I don't know about. Sori held his gaze. Something passed between them. Understanding, calculation. Of course not, she said smoothly. We were simply trying to expedite the safety assessment. For Mr. Sarmiento's benefit, she gestured to the men. They returned to the van, reluctant. Mr. Sarmiento. Sori pulled a business card from her pocket. Set it on the truck hood. When you're ready to discuss partnership, call me. Tate is very interested in preserving local agricultural history. We'd hate to see this site lost to neglect. She climbed into the SUV. Both vehicles left, trailing dust. Raul watched them go. What's really in that barn, Eli? Why? Because Tate doesn't send their community development director for collapsed timber. And Zari Delaney doesn't make house calls unless something's worth taking. Eli picked up the business card. Turned it over. On the back, handwritten, $50,000, good for 72 hours. They offered you money, Raul said. Statement, not question, apparently. You gonna take it? Eli tore the card in half. What do you think? Raul almost smiled. I think you should call a lawyer, and whatever you found in there, you should document it properly. Chain of custody, third-party verification, because Sori's next visit won't be friendly. She seemed plenty unfriendly already. That was her being charming. Raoul climbed back into his cruiser. 72 hours, Eli. That's when the county inspector shows up with paperwork I can't ignore. Get your documentation in order. He drove off. Gretel sat beside Eli's leg. He scratched behind her ears. We need Sister Birdie, he said. Sister Bernadette Kelly. Arrived in a station wagon older than Eli. She emerged with a document box under each arm and reading glasses on a beaded Jane. Small, precise eyes. They catalogued everything. You must be Eli, she said. River called. Told me to bring the good camera and my notary seal. Thank you for coming. Don't thank me yet. I'm expensive, she smiled. My rates are one hot meal and complete honesty. Can you manage that? Eli liked her immediately. River pulled up 5 minutes later with equipment cases. They set up in the barn's most stable section. Tarps spread to protect the artifacts from dust. Birdie photographed every item with museum precision. Serial numbers on the metal box. Wax patterns on the cylinders. Individual signatures on the pact. This is extraordinary, Birdie murmured. The preservation is remarkable. Can you verify it's authentic? Eli asked. I can verify the materials are period appropriate. The paper stock, ink composition, wax type. I can establish provenance through comparative analysis. She looked up. What I can't do is authenticate it alone. We need multiple experts, multiple institutions, a chain of custody so clean it's unassailable. River was photographing the quilt under raking light. The stitching patterns are consistent with Depression-era needlework. See these tension variations? That's hand sewing. No machine could replicate this irregularity. Alma said the patterns are code, Eli said. Then we need Alma. Birdie pulled out her phone. And we need to go public, carefully, strategically, before Tate can control the narrative. How? Local journalism. Someone trusted. Someone who won't sensationalize. River set down her camera. Juniper Park. She runs a podcast. Her grandmother, Hijin, knew some of the co-op families. June's small but credible. Eli remembered seeing flyers around town. Bridger voices, stories worth keeping. Can we trust her? I've known June since she was 12, River said. She came back here to take care of her Halmione after burning out at a city paper. She's careful. She cares about getting things right. Birdie was already dialing. Then let's get her here. June Park arrived with a recorder and questions. She sat on an overturned crate while Eli explained how Gretel had found the trapdoor, how Alma had read the quilt, how River had begun testing the seeds. Can I record this? June asked. That's why you're here. She pressed record. Tell me about the pact. Eli handed it to her. Watched her face change as she read. Mutual seed rights, she said quietly. This is a contract, a binding one, if it holds up legally, River added. That's what we're working to prove. June looked at the signatures. Some of these names I recognize. Park, that's my family. Yunsun Park, my Halmione's aunt. The barn went quiet. You're an heir, Birdie said. June nodded slowly. If this is real, if the pact is valid, then yes. How many other heirs might be out there? Eli asked. Dozens, maybe more. June pulled out her phone, started typing notes. Most of them won't know. The co-op disbanded before they were born, but the surnames are still around. Whitley, Mendoza, Delaney. We need to find them, River said. Before Tate does. June looked at Eli. If I publish this, everything changes. You understand that? I know. Tate will come harder. They'll discredit you, discredit the find. They'll hire lawyers and spin doctors and make your life hell. They already started. June's expression hardened. Then let's make sure we tell the truth first. She recorded for an hour, asked precise questions, took photographs with Birdie's permission. When she finished, she stood. I need to check something with my Halmione. If I'm right, this gets even bigger. How? Eli asked. You'll see. June returned 3 hours later with an elderly Korean woman. Hijin Park moved slowly but with purpose. She carried something wrapped in cloth. Halmione, this is Eli, June said. And Sister Birdie. And Dr. Okafor. Hijin bowed slightly. Set the wrapped object on the crate. unwrapped it, a chalkboard, small, the kind that hung in diners for daily specials. But the writing wasn't menu items. It was patterns, geometric shapes in different colored chalk. River leaned closer. These match the quilt. My mother worked at the co-op meetings, Hyejin said. Her English was accented but clear. She made food. She listened. She drew these patterns so she'd remember where the caches were hidden. June laid the quilt beside the chalkboard. The patterns aligned perfectly. Roots, Birdie breathed. Instructions. Hyejin traced a blue line. This goes to the old Miller property, where they hid the sorghum seeds. A yellow pattern. This one, the Delaney place. Beans and squash, red stitching. This, the ridge above town. Corn and wheat. There are multiple caches, Eli said. At least 3 that my mother knew about. Hyejin looked at him. Maybe more. The co-op didn't trust everything to one place. June was already pulling up maps on her phone, cross-referencing the patterns with current property lines. These sites still exist, she said. They're overgrown, abandoned, but they're there. Then we need to search them, River said, before Tate realizes what we found. A sound outside. Wings, heavy and multiple. Eli stepped through the barn opening. A flock of ravens wheeled overhead. At least a dozen. They settled on the ridge above the property, black against blue sky. Gretel watched them. Didn't bark. Just watched. They've been coming for days, Eli said. Hyejin smiled. The choir, that's what we called them. When I was young, the co-op would hang bright cloth scraps to signal meeting times. The ravens collected them, nested with them. You think they remember? June asked. Birds remember places. Remember patterns. Hyejin looked at the ridge. Maybe they've been waiting too. One raven took flight, circled lower, dropped something that flashed in the sunlight, landed near Gretel's paws. Eli picked it up. A brass tag, stamped with numbers and a symbol. Birdie took it, examined it under her glasses. This is a lockbox identification tag. See the embossing. This is from a bank or storage company. She compared it to the metal box they'd found. The symbols matched. This is from the co-op's original lockbox, she said quietly. The one they used before they had to hide everything? River stared at the ravens. They've been collecting pieces for decades, keeping memory, Hyejin said. June looked at Eli. I'm publishing this tonight before anyone can stop us. It's going to start something. Eli said, Good. June's voice was steel. It should have started a long time ago. The podcast episode dropped at midnight. By morning, Eli's phone was ringing. Calls from numbers he didn't recognize. Texts from people asking if it was true, if the pact was real, if they might be heirs. June's episode had been careful, factual. She'd included clips of Eli describing the find, River explaining the preliminary testing, Birdie's statement about provenance, and at the end, Hyejin's voice speaking in Korean, then English. My mother hid her future in those seeds. Now maybe we can plant it again. The comment section exploded. By noon, a crowd had gathered outside the barn. 15 people, 20 holding quilts, carrying old photographs, clutching paper with genealogy notes. Pastor Malik Green arrived in his pickup, tall, calm presence that made noise quiet down. Folks, he said, this needs to happen properly, not in a field. We'll meet at the church tonight. 7 o'clock. Everyone who thinks they're connected to the co-op, bring your documentation. We'll figure this out together. The crowd dispersed slowly, reluctantly. Deputy Raoul pulled Eli aside. County inspector's coming tomorrow morning, 9 sharp, with a demolition order. Can you stop it? Not without a court injunction, or proof this site has historical significance. Raoul glanced at the barn. How's that documentation coming? We're working on it. Work faster. The church hall was packed by 6:30. Folding chairs filled every row. People stood along the walls. Pastor Malik had set up a card table at the front with a microphone. Eli sat with River and Birdie. Alma arrived and took a seat beside Hyejin. June stood in back with her recorder. At 7 exactly, Malik called the meeting to order. We're here because something hidden has been found. Something that might belong to some of us. Maybe all of us. He gestured to Eli. Mr. Sarmiento will explain what he discovered. Then we'll hear from the experts. Then we'll discuss what happens next. But we'll do it with respect. With honesty, And with the understanding that we're in this together, Eli stood, told the story again. The auction, the trapdoor, the pact. When he finished, a woman in the third row raised her hand. Mid-30s, professional clothes, sharp eyes. Keisha Whitley Ramos, she said. My great-great-grandfather was Fletcher Whitley. I inherited a quilt I thought was decorative. She held it up. The pattern was different from the one Eli had found, but the style was the same. Deliberate geometry. Hidden meaning. I think this maps to something, Keisha said. Hijin stood, walked to Keisha. Studied the quilt, the Whitley cache, she said. North property. Near the creek, Keisha sat down slowly. There's actually something there? If my mother's memory was right, more hands went up. A man with a Mendoza quilt. A teenager whose grandmother was a Delaney. An old farmer who'd found co-op meeting minutes in his grandfather's Bible. River presented the seed analysis. Preliminary testing shows genetic markers consistent with pre-1940s breeding. These aren't modern hybrids. They're genuine heirlooms, and they predate multiple current patents. The room erupted. Questions, excitement, fear. Birdie waited for quiet. I need to explain something about legal standing. If this pact is valid, if these seeds and documents can be authenticated, you're not just inheritors of history. You're potential rights holders. The pact specifies mutual ownership, shared stewardship. That means decisions have to be collective. What if we can't agree? Someone called out, then the pact fails, and everything defaults to the current deed holder. Birdie looked at Eli, which is Mr. Sarmiento. Every eye in the room turned to him. Eli stood again. I don't want sole ownership. I didn't know what I was buying. But I know what's right. He pulled out the pact. This document says no single party holds exclusive rights. I'm willing to honor that. But we need to do this properly, legally, before Tate tries to take it from all of us. A voice from the back. Cold. Professional. May I speak? A woman in a Tate AgriHold polo stood. Eli hadn't seen her come in. I'm here observing, she said. On behalf of Tate's legal team, we're prepared to make a generous offer to purchase the site and all materials. We'll preserve everything. Make it a museum. Ensure the history is protected. Under Tate's control, Keisha said flatly. Under professional management. Same thing. The Tate representative smiled. Pulled out a tablet. The offer is substantial. 7 figures. Split among documented heirs. All you have to do is sign over rights. And the seeds, River asked, would be preserved in Tate's seed bank. Available for research, but not for planting. Not for unregulated planting, no. Biosecurity requires oversight. Alma stood slowly. Leaned on her cane. I'm 83 years old. I watched my father protect these seeds with his life. I'm not handing them to the people his co-op was fighting against. The representative's expression didn't change. With respect, ma'am, Tate is a different company now. We're committed to sustainable, you're committed to control. Same as your predecessors. Same as always. Alma looked around the room. My father told me something before he died. He said the co-op wasn't about seeds. It was about the right to decide, together, not for sale. Silence. County Clerk Beverly Ortiz stood from the side aisle. She'd been so quiet Eli hadn't noticed her. I found something, Beverly said. In the deed records, an addendum from 1932. She held up a yellowed page in a protective sleeve. It references mutual rights in seed stock and know-how. It was filed with the original Whitley deed and never revoked. It's still legally binding. The Tate representative's smile vanished. That addendum gives the co-op heirs standing, Beverly continued. Not just sentimental standing, legal standing. To claim shared stewardship. Pastor Malik moved to the front. Then we need to vote on forming a temporary steward council, on how to proceed, on whether to sell, fight, or find another way. I propose a 30-day moratorium, Keisha said. No sales, no decisions. We verify the caches, test the seeds, get proper legal counsel. Then we decide together. Second, Alma said. The vote was unanimous. The Tate representative left without another word. Eli felt something loosen in his chest. The weight, distributing, sharing. After the meeting, Keisha approached him. You could have kept it all. Sold it quick. Why didn't you? Eli looked at the empty hall, the chairs people had sat in, the space where community had formed around something buried. Because my mother used to say that anything worth having is worth sharing. I didn't understand what she meant until now. Keisha smiled. Then let's make sure we do this right. Outside, the ravens circled under stars. Gretel sat on the church steps, watching, waiting, and somewhere in the dark, in soil that remembered, seeds that had survived everything waited too. The search team assembled at dawn. Eli, Keisha, River, and Alma stood at the trailhead with the quilts spread across the truck hood. Tariq Alonso, a 17-year-old mechanic who'd volunteered his equipment, loaded shovels and a portable generator into the bed. You sure about this, Tariq? Eli asked. My bisabuelo was Jose Mendoza, co-op treasurer. Tariq adjusted his work gloves. If there's family treasure buried, I'm not missing it. Gretel paced the perimeter, nose to the ground. The ravens wheeled overhead, following. Keisha traced the pattern on her quilt with one finger. If Halmione's right, the Whitley cache should be a quarter-mile northwest. Near where the old creek bend used to run? Used to? River asked. County rerouted it in the 60s. Drought management. Keisha folded the quilt carefully. But the land remembers. You can still see the depression where the water flowed. They moved through scrub oak and wild grass. The morning was cold, the sky threatening rain. Eli watched the ground for the depression Keisha described, watched Gretel for alerts. The dog stopped at a grove of cottonwoods, circled, whined. Here, Eli said. The depression was subtle, a slight curve in the earth, maybe 6 inches lower than surrounding terrain. Old river stones pushed through soil like bone through skin. Tariq set down the generator, pulled out a metal detector he'd rigged from car parts and YouTube tutorials. Swept the area in careful grids. The detector screamed near the largest cottonwood. Something metal, Tariq said. 2 feet down, maybe. They dug carefully. Eli and Tariq with shovels, Keisha and River clearing soil by hand. Elma supervised from a folding chair, cane across her knees. The shovel hit something solid. Not stone, metal they cleared around it. A tin-lined box, 18 inches square, sealed with tar and wrapped in oilcloth that had deteriorated but held. Don't open it yet, River said. We need photographs, documentation. Birdie had stayed behind to process yesterday's findings, but she'd given River a camera and protocol checklist. River photographed the box in situ, the surrounding soil, the tree roots that had grown around, but not through the seal. Only then did Eli pry open the lid. Inside, packed in sawdust and wax paper, were glass jars, each one labeled in careful script. Whitley drought corn, 1931 sorghum red. Summer 1930, beans rattlesnake, 1929, and beneath the jars another ledger, smaller than the one in the barn, a record of who contributed what. Who had rights to which seeds? Keisha's hands trembled as she lifted the ledger. Opened it. Her great-great-grandfather's handwriting filled the first page. He lists every family, she whispered. Every seed line. Every agreement about how profits would split. She looked up, eyes bright. This is proof, legal proof, that the co-op wasn't just talk. It was a functioning business. Thunder rolled in the distance. We need to move, Eli said. Get these under cover before the rain hits. They repacked everything carefully. Tariq carried the box. Gretel led them back through the grove, faster now as the first drops began to fall. The rain came hard and sudden. They ran the last 100 yards to where Tariq's garage sat behind his family's property. He'd already converted half of it into a makeshift clean room, plastic sheeting, fans, a dehumidifier humming in the corner. Set it here, Tariq said, pointing to a work table he'd sterilized with alcohol. They crowded inside as the storm pounded the roof. River examined each jar under battery-powered lamps, checked seals, looked for any sign of moisture or degradation. They're intact, she said finally. Whoever packed these knew what they were doing. The sawdust absorbed ambient moisture. The wax paper provided a secondary barrier. These seeds might actually be viable. Might? Keisha asked. Won't know until we test germination rates. But the preservation is remarkable. River set down a jar of corn. These could grow. Alma had been quiet, staring at the jars with an expression Eli couldn't read. Not quite grief, not quite joy. Something older than both. "What is it?" he asked. "My father packed these," Alma said softly. "I remember. I was 8 years old. He brought jars from families all over the valley. Spent 3 days sealing them, marking them. He told me we were hiding hope." She looked at Eli. "I thought it was poetry, old man sentimentality. But he was being literal. This is hope, preserved waiting. Outside the storm intensified. Thunder cracked close enough to rattle the windows. Then Gretel started barking, sharp, urgent. Eli moved to the garage door, peered through the gap. 2 vehicles parked on the road. One was the white Tate AgriHold van. The other was a truck with a county contractor logo. Sorry Delaney emerged from the van with an umbrella. A man in a suit followed. 3 workers climbed from the contractor truck with equipment. "We've got company," Eli said. Tariq killed the lights. They watched through the window as Sori approached the barn property a quarter-mile away. She stood in the rain surveying. The suited man took photographs. The contractors unloaded stakes and surveying equipment. "They're mapping it," River said. "For demolition." "They can't," Keisha said. "We have a 30-day moratorium. The council voted. The council isn't legally binding yet. We haven't filed anything with the county." Alma's voice was tight. "They're moving before we can establish standing." Raoul's cruiser pulled up, lights flashing. The deputy got out. Spoke with Sori. The conversation looked heated even through the rain. Sori gestured at the barn. Raoul shook his head, pointed back to the vehicles. After 5 minutes, Sori and her team climbed back into their vehicles. But they didn't leave, just moved down the road. Parked where they could watch, Raoul walked to the garage, knocked. Eli opened the door. "They've got a court order," Raoul said without preamble. "Emergency demolition based on imminent collapse risk. Judge signed it this morning. They're executing it at dawn. Can you stop them?" "Not without a competing order. Not without proof this site has protected status." Raoul looked past Eli at the jars. "At the ledgers. You found something?" "A cache. With documentation." "Good. Get it to Sister Birdie. Get it to a lawyer. File for historical landmark status tonight. That's the only thing that'll slow this down. Tonight." "They're not bluffing, Eli. Sori told me they've got a crew on standby. Equipment ready. If you don't have paperwork filed by morning, that barn becomes rubble." Raoul left. The rain continued. "We need to move." Birdie's voice came from the doorway. She'd arrived during the confrontation, silent as rain. "Everything. Every jar. Every document. To the diocesan archive. It's the only place with environmental controls and legal protection." "How do we transport it?" River asked, carefully. "In my car, 1 trip. Right now they worked fast. Wrapped each jar in bubble wrap Tariq had scavenged from somewhere. Packed the ledgers in waterproof bags. Loaded everything into Birdie's station wagon with the reverence of pallbearers. "I'm coming with you," Keisha said. "Me too," Alma added. Eli looked at the barn through the rain. "At the place where this had all started, where Gretel had scratched at a floor and changed everything. Go," he said. "I'll stay. Make sure they don't try anything before dawn." "You can't stop a demolition crew alone," River said. "I don't plan to stop them. Just witness, document, make sure they know we're watching." Birdie's car pulled away, tail lights disappearing into storm grey. Eli sat on the garage floor with Gretel pressed against his side. Tariq brought coffee in a thermos. They waited. The wax cylinders were still in the barn. Eli realized it suddenly. They'd focused on the jars, the ledgers, the immediate evidence. But the recordings, the voices of the co-op members speaking their bylaws, their ethics, their vision, were still hidden in the barn's hollow space. "I need to go back," Eli said. "Now." Tariq looked at him like he was insane. "They'll demolish it at dawn. If those cylinders are still inside, they're gone forever." Gretel stood, ready. "Then we go together," Tariq said. They moved through rain that had settled into steady determination. The Tate vehicles were still parked on the road, windows fogged. Watching, Eli and Tariq entered through the foundation gap. Used phone flashlights to navigate the collapsed interior. Water dripped through the broken roof in streams. The trapdoor was where Eli had left it. Open. the wooden rack of cylinders still intact. He handed them up to Tariq one at a time. 6 cylinders, wax surfaces slick with moisture but uncracked. The last one was different, heavier. Eli shone his light on the label, Final Testament. Fletcher Whitley. 1941. His hands went still. What is it? Tariq asked. A recording I haven't heard yet. Bring it. We'll listen at the garage. They climbed out as headlights swept across the property. More vehicles arriving, setting up for the morning work. Back in the garage, Tariq had rigged a player from vintage equipment he'd been repairing. Eli set the cylinder carefully on the spindle. The recording crackled. Then a voice emerged. Old, tired, but clear. My name is Fletcher Whitley. It's March 1941. I'm recording this because I'm dying, and someone needs to know what we built, what we tried to protect. Eli sat down. Gretel rested her head on his knee. The co-op wasn't just about seeds. It was about the right to decide, together. The grain syndicate, they wanted control, wanted to own everything we grew, everything we were. We said no. We pooled our seeds, our knowledge, our profits. We made sure no single hand could take it all. A long pause. Breathing, they came after us. Legal pressure, economic pressure. Some families lost their land. Some left, but we hid what mattered. Buried it, coded it, made sure it would survive even if we didn't. Another pause. The wax surface popped with age. If you're hearing this, you found what we hid. That makes you a steward. Not an owner, a steward. Your job isn't to sell it, isn't to keep it. Your job is to share it, pass it on. Make sure the next generation has the same choice we fought for. The choice to decide, together, not alone. The recording ended. Eli sat in the dark garage listening to rain on the roof, listening to the echo of a dead man's voice telling him what he already knew but needed to hear. We can't let them demolish it, Tariq said quietly. We won't. How? Eli stood. By making sure everyone hears this. Tonight, before dawn, he called June. June's emergency live stream started at 11 p.m. She sat in her grandmother's kitchen with the wax cylinder player on the table. He edged beside her. The viewer count climbed as word spread through social media. Tonight we're playing a recording that's been hidden for 80 years, June said into the camera. The voice of Fletcher Whitley, founder of the Bridger Valley Co-op, his final testament. She played the cylinder. Let Fletcher's words fill the silence. The viewer count exploded. Comments scrolled too fast to read. When it ended, June looked at the camera. At dawn, Tate AgriHold plans to demolish the barn where this recording was found. They have a court order citing safety concerns. But this isn't about safety. It's about erasure. About making sure you never hear this voice. Never know this story. Never realize that our grandparents fought for something we're still fighting for. The right to decide together. She gave the barn's address. If you believe this matters, be there at dawn. Be a witness. Bring cameras. Bring your voice. Let's make sure they know we're watching. The stream ended. By midnight, the social media storm was Category 5. By 2 a.m., Sori Delaney's countermove launched. A new website appeared. Professional design. Anonymous registration. It claimed the barn was contaminated with pesticide residue, that the seeds were potentially dangerous, that Eli Sarmiento was an unlicensed contractor with no expertise in hazardous materials. The website included photographs. Eli outside the barn, River at her seed library with captions questioning her credentials. Even Birdie, with implications about the diocese's financial troubles and motivations. June called Eli at 2:30. They're trying to discredit everyone. I'm getting messages asking if you're qualified to handle biohazards, if River is a real scientist, if Birdie falsified the chain of custody. What are you telling them? The truth, with receipts, River's CV, Birdie's credentials, your work history. But Eli, they're good at this. They're making people doubt before they even see the evidence. At 3 a.m., Alma's phone rang, a representative from the State Historical Society. Very polite, very professional. They'd heard about her preservation efforts. They wanted to offer her a legacy award, $5,000, a ceremony, recognition. All she had to do was step back from the co-op project. Let the professionals handle it. Let Tate manage the preservation properly. Alma listened, then said, "My father fought the grain syndicate his whole life. I'm not betraying him for $5,000 or $5 million. Tell your employer I said no." She hung up. Called Eli. "They just tried to buy me. That means we're winning." At 4 a.m., smoke detectors went off at the barn. Eli and Gretel were there within minutes. No fire, just a smoke canister that had been tossed through a gap in the wall. Still smouldering, the ravens erupted from the ridge, screaming, circling. Their alarm had probably scared off whoever threw it. Gretel barked at the tree line. Eli saw movement, a figure retreating. He didn't chase, just documented everything with his phone. Called Raoul. The deputy arrived as false dawn grayed the horizon. "Arson attempt," Raoul said, examining the canister. "Or intimidation. Either way, it's a crime. Can you stop the demolition?" "Not without a judge's order." Raoul looked at the road where vehicles were already gathering. Not just Tate contractors, locals, people with cameras and folding chairs and thermoses. "But I can make sure it stays peaceful. Make sure everyone follows the law." Cars kept arriving, trucks, a school bus full of college students from 3 counties over. By 5 a.m., 200 people surrounded the barn, holding signs, streaming on phones, singing hymns. Pastor Malik had started. Sori Delaney arrived at 5:30. She stepped from her SUV into a wall of witnesses. Her expression never changed, but her eyes calculated constantly. This wasn't the plan. This wasn't containable. She approached Eli. "This is a legal demolition. You're interfering. We're witnessing. First Amendment, you're creating a public safety hazard. We're standing in a field. The only hazard is your equipment." The contractor foreman approached Sori, spoke quietly. She listened. Her jaw tightened. "What did he say?" River asked. Eli had read lips enough to catch it. "He said he won't run equipment through a crowd. Liability's too high." At 6 a.m., Birdie arrived with the county clerk's stamp on emergency paperwork. "Historical landmark petition," she announced. "Filed at midnight. Pending review. County code states that pending landmarks cannot be demolished until review concludes." Beverly Ortiz stepped forward. She'd been in the crowd, quiet until now. "I received the filing. I validated it. The review period is 30 days minimum." Sori's composure cracked. Just for a second, a flash of something cold and sharp. "This is a delay tactic. This is due process," Beverly said. The sun broke the horizon. Light fell across the barn's collapsed roof, across the faces of 200 people who decided that witness mattered, that memory mattered, that some things were worth protecting. Sori made a call, spoke in tones too low to hear, hung up, looked at Eli. "You've made this personal," she said. "That's a mistake." She left. The contractors packed their equipment. The crowd cheered, but Eli felt no relief, just the certainty that Sori meant what she said. This had become personal. And personal meant dangerous. Alma stood beside him. "She'll come back harder." "I know." "Good. Means you're ready." The crowd dispersed slowly, reluctant to leave, as if their presence alone could keep protecting what they'd saved. June approached with Hyejin. The live stream hit 500,000 views. "People are asking what they can do, how they can help. Tell them to find their own quilts," Eli said. "Their own stories. This isn't just about one barn. It's about every place where people tried to protect something together." Keisha had been documenting everything, taking notes, planning. She pulled Eli aside. "We need to formalize the Steward Council. File actual articles of organization. Create a legal entity that can hold property and make decisions. Otherwise, we're just a mob, and mobs can be dismissed." "How long?" "I can have drafts by tonight. We'll need signatures, bylaws, a bank account. The boring stuff that makes things real. Do it." Tariq was already working on his next project, a seed dryer that could process the cash samples without damaging them. He'd sketched designs on the back of a gas station receipt. "If we're going to prove these seeds are viable, we need to germinate them properly," he said. "Low heat, controlled humidity. I can build it from aquarium parts and a space heater." River helped him refine the specs. They worked on the garage floor like engineers planning a Mars landing. Gretel slept in a patch of sunlight. The ravens settled back on their ridge, watching, waiting. And somewhere in an office with too much glass and too little memory, Sori Delaney made more calls, wrote more checks, activated more pressure points. The war had begun. The emergency hearing was scheduled for 10 days out. Birdie spent those days building an archive that could withstand scrutiny. She photographed every document from multiple angles, catalogued every jar, created a database cross-referencing signatures on the pact with census records and property deeds. River ran germination tests in carefully controlled conditions. Of 20 seeds she tested, 17 sprouted, an 85% viability rate for seeds that had been buried for decades. June published a series investigating Tate AgriHold's corporate history, the connections to the old grain syndicate, the pattern of patents filed on seeds that predated their discovery, the testimonies of farmers who'd been sued for saving seed from their own harvests. Each article drew more attention, more scrutiny, more pressure. Tate's response was surgical. A university committee suddenly questioned River's research methodology. Anonymous complaints about her lab's safety protocols. Her grant funding was suspended pending review. June's podcast hosting. Service received DMCA takedown notices for unauthorized use of copyrighted material, claims that were baseless but required legal response. Even Pastor Malik got visited by fire inspectors who found violations in the church hall that had passed inspection a month prior. Keisha fielded it all with spreadsheets and determination. She'd formed the Seed and Soil Trust, filed non-profit paperwork, opened a bank account that had received 73 donations in the first week. We're building legitimacy, she told the Steward Council at their nightly meetings. Every document filed, every proper procedure followed. It's armor, legal armor. They can't dismiss us as chaos if we're more organized than they are. The hearing arrived like a storm everyone had watched coming. The county courthouse was packed, media in the back rows, locals filling every seat. Tate's legal team arrived with 3 attorneys and a geneticist expert witness. The Steward Council had one lawyer, pro bono, a woman named Carmen Reyes, who'd built her career defending water rights. Judge Marianne Chen called the court to order. "This is an emergency petition for preliminary injunction," she said, "preventing demolition of a structure pending historical review. We'll hear from petitioners first." Birdie took the stand, explained her archival process, the chain of custody, the dating techniques, the cross-referencing with historical records. Tate's attorney cross-examined. "Sister Kelly, you're not a trained historian, are you?" "I have a master's degree in archival science from an accredited institution." "From Notre Dame." The attorney paused, adjusted. "But you're not a geneticist. You can't verify the seeds themselves." "That's correct. Which is why Dr. Okafor conducted that analysis." River testified next. Presented germination data, genetic markers, comparison with modern hybrids. These seeds show biodiversity patterns consistent with pre-industrial agriculture, she explained. Multiple alleles in single populations. Genetic variation that modern breeding programs eliminate. They're authentic heirlooms. Tate's geneticist expert tried to poke holes, questioned sample sizes, methodology, but River had been careful. Her data was clean. June submitted her FOIA requests. The documents connecting Tate to the original syndicate, the patterns of patent filings, evidence of corporate memory, even as the company claimed ignorance. Beverly testified about the deed addendum, its legal standing, its continuous validity despite being forgotten. Keisha presented the trust's formation documents, the bylaws, the structure for collective decision-making. "We're not trying to exclude anyone," she said. "We're trying to include everyone who has legitimate standing, to honor what the co-op founders intended. Shared stewardship, mutual rights." Tate's attorneys argued biosecurity concerns, economic impact, the dangers of unregulated seed distribution, but their arguments felt hollow in the face of Fletcher Whitley's recorded voice. June had submitted the wax cylinder as evidence. The judge had listened in chambers. After 6 hours, Judge Chen called a recess. The Steward Council waited in the hallway. Eli paced. Gretel sat pressed against Alma's legs. The old woman's hand rested on the dog's head. Steady. Win or lose, we've done something, Alma said quietly. We've made them acknowledge this existed. That our parents and grandparents weren't just victims. They were builders, fighters, survivors. I want them to win, Eli said. They already did. By lasting long enough for us to find them. The bailiff called them back. Judge Chen's expression revealed nothing. I've reviewed the evidence presented by both parties. The historical documentation is compelling. The genetic analysis appears sound. The legal standing of the deed addendum is clear. She paused. However, this court must also consider public safety and proper procedure. Eli's stomach dropped. Therefore, I'm issuing the following order. First, the demolition injunction is granted. The barn structure will not be demolished pending full historical review. Second, temporary custodianship is assigned to the Seed and Soil Trust Steward Council as representatives of documented heirs. Third, a neutral third-party geneticist will be appointed to audit Dr. Okafor's findings and conduct additional testing. Fourth, all seeds and materials will remain in the custody of the diocesan archive with Sister Kelly as primary steward. She looked directly at Tate's legal team. Fifth, any party claiming patent rights to seed varieties documented in the co-op materials must demonstrate that their patents were filed with knowledge of or subsequent to the prior art represented by these materials. The burden of proof is on the patent holder. The courtroom erupted. Judge Chen's gavel cracked. Finally, this court orders a 60-day period for all parties to negotiate a resolution. If negotiations fail, we will proceed to full trial. But I strongly encourage the parties to find a path forward that honors both historical preservation and contemporary agricultural needs. She adjourned. The Steward Council sat stunned. Then Keisha started laughing, then crying. Then both. We won, she said. We actually won. We bought time, Carmen corrected. And legitimacy. But the real fight is just beginning. Outside the courthouse, news cameras waited. June gave a statement on behalf of the trust. Calm, factual, generous in victory, Sori Delaney gave her own statement. All smiles and cooperation, praising the judge's wisdom, expressing Tate's commitment to working with local stakeholders. But when she passed Eli on the courthouse steps, her eyes said something different. This isn't over. No, it wasn't. But for the first time since finding the trapdoor, Eli felt like they might actually have a chance. The field waited, not the barn's collapsed shadow, but land 200 yards south, cleared, tilled, ready. The Steward Council had chosen this spot deliberately. Visible from the road, accessible. A statement that what they were building belonged to everyone. Morning broke clear and cold. April planting season. The same month, Fletcher Whitley and his co-op had signed their pact 93 years earlier. Eli stood at the field's edge, watching people arrive. Families with children, elders moving slowly, farmers in work boots. Reporters with cameras kept respectful distance. Gretel sat beside him. The ravens circled overhead in their familiar pattern, watching, witnessing. You nervous? Keisha asked. Terrified, she smiled. Good. Means it matters. The past 60 days had been a whirlwind of paperwork and negotiation. The neutral geneticist had confirmed River's findings. The patent audit had revealed 3 Tate varieties that clearly derived from co-op seedlines, patents that were now in legal limbo. Tate had made one final offer, $2 million, full museum funding, a partnership that would make everyone rich. The Steward Council had voted. Unanimous rejection. Instead, they drafted the Seed and Soil Trust bylaws, a structure that granted non-commercial licenses freely, that shared revenue from any commercial licensing among heirs and local growers, that required collective consent for major decisions. It wasn't perfect. Nothing involving 15 families and generations of complicated history could be. But it was theirs. Pastor Malik stood at a makeshift podium, a folding table with a microphone. We gather today to plant, he said. His voice carried across the field. Not just seeds, but possibility. The possibility that what our grandparents fought for can take root again. That shared stewardship matters more than individual ownership. that some things are worth protecting together. He gestured to Alma. She walked slowly to the front, leaned on her cane, pulled a folded paper from her pocket. "My father's name was Samuel Webb," she said. "He signed the Co-op Pact in 1932. He hid seeds in the ground and patterns in quilts. He believed that survival required sharing, that no single hand should hold the grain." She unfolded the paper. The original pact, carefully preserved behind museum glass now, but she'd had it photographed and printed. "I'm going to read some names. The Co-op founders. When you hear your ancestor's name, come forward," she began. Fletcher Whitley. Keisha stepped forward with her daughter, age 7, carrying a mason jar of corn. Yoon Sun Park. June and Hyejin moved to the field. Hyejin held beans. June carried a small shovel. Jose Mendoza. Tariq came forward with his grandfather. Between them they held a jar of sorghum, name after name. Families emerging from the crowd. Some were documented heirs. Others were spiritual descendants, people whose families had worked this valley, survived its droughts, remembered its stories. River had prepared planting stations, small plots marked with stakes, instructions printed on weatherproof cards. Each family would plant a row of the seeds their ancestors had preserved. "This isn't just ceremony," River explained to the cameras June had invited. "These are viability tests, real agriculture. We're proving these seeds can grow, can feed, can sustain." She held up a clipboard. "Germination rates so far are extraordinary, 85% average. Some varieties hit 90. These seeds want to live." The planting began. Children dug holes with adult hands guiding. Elders scattered seeds with prayers in multiple languages. Tariq's homemade seed dryer had prepared everything perfectly, moisture content exact, no damage to embryos. Eli took his turn. Not as an heir, as the custodian who'd stumbled into stewardship. He planted drought corn beside Keisha's daughter. "What happens if they don't grow?" The girl asked. "Then we try again next season. What if they do? Then we share them with anyone who wants to plant." She considered this. That seems fair. Fair. Simple word for a complicated idea. But maybe that was the point. Fairness shouldn't be complicated. Sister Birdie moved through the rows with her camera, documenting every planting, every face, building an archive that would outlast all of them. "This is important," she said to no one in particular. "Not just what we're planting, but that we're doing it together. That we chose cooperation over competition." Beverly Ortiz had come, off duty, in jeans instead of her clerk's uniform. She planted squash in a plot marked for families without documented lineage, a space for anyone who wanted to belong. "I spent 30 years filing papers," she said. "This is the first time any of them felt like they mattered." Deputy Raoul worked the perimeter, not in uniform, just present, making sure the ceremony stayed peaceful. He'd brought his nephew, taught the boy how to space seeds properly. "My abuelo farmed," Raoul said quietly to Eli. "Lost everything in foreclosure. I became a cop because I thought enforcement was stability. But maybe growing something is more stable than protecting it." The ceremony lasted 3 hours. When the last seed was planted, Pastor Malik offered a blessing. Not just Christian. He'd asked leaders from other traditions to contribute. A Buddhist prayer, a Jewish blessing, Muslim invocation, indigenous offering. "We bless these seeds as they were blessed before," Malik concluded, "by hands that believe tomorrow could be better than today." By here up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch, and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.